That's what friendship's all about.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. Welcome to another misunderstood movie review. Today's review is for the 1991 action film Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, a film that is directed by Simon Windsor, and it stars Mickey Rourke, Don Johnson, Chelsea Field, Daniel Baldwin, Giancarlo Esposito, yes, that Giancarlo from Breaking Bad fame, Vanessa Williams, Tia Carey, and Tom Sizemore. Now, this film is... why do I think this film deserves a misunderstood movie review? Well, I remember when this film came out in the early 90s. I mean, it was kind of the height of like action movies, you know what I mean? There were a dime a dozen. They were coming out all the time. And there's a staple of like action movies that I used to kind of go to in the early 90s. This was one of them I used to watch on VHS all the time. Things like Last Boy Scout, Con Air, Showdown in Little Tokyo, Marked for Death, as well as many other Steven Seagal films, and all the Van Dammes that are out at the time. It was a great, great time for action movies. And when this film came out, it was hated universally, generally by critics, and it's one of those films that audience members are a bit more tolerable of, but critics absolutely hated at the time. When you watch it now these days, you can really understand that. I've just rewatched it to prepare for this review. I haven't seen it for quite a while, and you can't get it on Blu-ray. I've looked. You can still pick it up fairly cheap on DVD. The film is very much a film of its time. 1991. It's very, very dated in many, many aspects of the film, and it's got a pretty terrible script. And there's other things that it's just not got going for it, you know, in regards to creativity But so you can understand why kind of critics hated it at the time. I think it was just dismissed as like, you know, just a crappy little action film for two stars that were trying desperately, I suppose, to have a hit. Now, Mickey Rourke had a couple of misses leading up to this film in regards to box office. He had a bit of a reputation as being like, you know, a bit of a troublemaker, all that kind of stuff. And he's admitted publicly that he only did this film really for the paycheck, and he kind of hated himself for doing the film, and he dislikes the film immensely. But he had a really good relationship with Don Johnson, and they got on very, very well when they made the film. And they're still friends to this day, I think. And Don Johnson was really trying to carve a career for himself after Miami Vice ended. He'd done a couple of movies that hadn't really found an audience, so he was looking for like an action film or some project that was going to kind of get his name into cinemas. And he was hoping that this would be it. Now, unfortunately, the film massively flopped. I think it made about $7 million worldwide on a £23 million budget. Or I'm not sure if that was domestic or worldwide. Either way, it was a flop. And it was one of those that found a life on home video when it got on home video. And it certainly found a life on my collection of home videos. Because what we get here is a pretty brainless but fun action film with two leads, regardless of what they might have thought of the project, who have absolutely got brilliant chemistry together, and they are wonderful in the film. Now, you've got Mickey Rourke playing Harley Davidson, who's a bit of a drifter, going back home to LA, meets up with his good long friend, the Marlboro Man, played by Don Johnson. They go to a bar they frequented for many, many years. It's in trouble financially. It's been screwed by the bank. They've got to come up with $2.5 million, or he's going to lose the lease. So they come up with the master plan of robbing the bank, which is what they do. As you can imagine, it doesn't go well because they don't end up robbing the money. They end up, by mistake, taking a load of drugs from this bank, because it's actually a front for a drug running operation as well. This then leads to them being tracked down by a bunch of heavies. Many of their friends are killed, and it's up to Harley and Marlboro to go on the run and try and make things right. It's not deep stuff here, guys, in regards to storylines. It's got a fun cast. I mean, there's many recognisable names here. Probably the worst performance of the film is actually Tom Sizemore, strangely. In an early role for him, he plays like the bad guy at the bank, and it's just a really one-tone, generic bad guy performance. It's just not very good at all. So the film lacks a really good villain. Daniel Baldwin plays one of the heavies, who him and his group look pretty cool because they kind of walk round with these long leather coats on that are lined with Kevlar, so they're very hard to kill. So it's a cool idea for the bad guys, but all they tend to do is walk around with slick black hair back and shooting guns. They've given very little else to do. So it's left really to these two guys, Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke, to carry the film, and they almost pull it off in a sense of, really making it worthwhile watching it just to see the chemistry between them. It's got some good action sequences. It's got some really cliched stuff in there. I mean, some lines like, better to be dead and cool than alive and uncool. Eek, not brilliant stuff. And the Chelsea Field character, who plays like a love interest for Don Johnson, is completely wasted in the film. So there's aspects here in the film where it just doesn't work. But you do see a couple of moments in the film where you get Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson sharing the screen for a quiet moment, having a conversation, and you can see the talent in these guys because they're both very talented actors. They're just, I think, certainly a bit underrated. So you can see them both in a couple of scenes, quiet moments, and you just see them moments, and you can see them putting in a performance, regardless of what they think of the project. You can see them actually putting in a performance, and there are some decent acting moments from them, and they both carry off the action sequences really well too. So while this is in no way a classic, which I've not made it a classic film review, I do think it warrants being a misunderstood movie review because it's one that critics completely dismissed. It didn't do well at the box office, but it is, in my opinion, a good early 90s action film that deserves to find an audience still. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely worth checking out if you get an opportunity to catch it on streaming or pick it up on DVD if you see it at a car boot or something like that. I promise you won't be disappointed. It's in the same league as, things like Last Boy Scout. Maybe not just as good as that, but it's in that kind of league in regards to early 90s action, and it is certainly worth checking out if you're a fan of like older action films. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you like this review. I'll be back with plenty more content on the channel very soon.